I just met Shanti, our speaker today, so I'm not like May Hassman. She just introduced their speaker last week verbatim, not without a note, but I have to have notes today. So our speaker this morning is Shanti Johnson. She joined Mountain Lion Communications Outreach and Marketing. She's the specialist there on February of 2020. Her passion is applying her skills in communications and education, building a more sustainable, equitable community for everyone. Prior to joining Mountain Lion, Shanti worked for Missoula-based marketing agency and for the University of Montana, a great organization, the Mike and Maureen Mansfield Center. She holds a master's in environmental science and natural resource journalism, an interesting combination, from the University of Montana. Her favorite pastimes, dance class, crossword puzzles. So let's welcome Shanti this morning. Thank you so much.
So I worked with them for quite a while. They let me take what was supposed to be a TA position and turn it into a full-time position, and I probably could have done that for the rest of my life, but it needed to go back to a student. And so I started looking for other ways that I could be involved with the community using skills and communication and creativity to connect for services that I think benefit us all. So I found myself at Mountain Lion right before we shut down in February of 2020, and that meant I learned really fast. And the one thing that I think I had the benefit of was that no one had gone through it before. So it wasn't like I could have studied ahead of time to navigate offering bus service during a pandemic. It's been an amazing year though, to be part of Mountain Lion and to see the benefits that accessible, affordable bus service has for our community. I think one silver lining was that at the bottom of our ridership during last April when everything shut down, we were still serving about 30% of our riders, which is about 7,000 people a week. So, that was the first time I think we really got to connect with who truly uses the bus as an essential service, to get to work, to get to the grocery store. And so for us, I think that was just a little bit of a silver lining for the pandemic, to understand just how essential Mountain Lion service is to keep our community going. And then everything on top of that is just a further benefit. So today I'm gonna wing a little bit of my presentation, and I think it could be really beneficial to hear some of your questions. But what I thought I would do is start off by just giving an overview of Mountain Lion and how we're organized. It's something that not a lot of people understand how we function. And then do a brief overview of some of our services and some of the things we've done over the past year to expand the connection with the community for even those who don't ride. And then I thought I would just end with talking a little bit about our upcoming expansions in January. We're gonna be adding 30% more service starting in January, which is pretty significant, and then open it up for questions. So does that sound good? All right, lots of head nods. Okay, well, so to just start out with how Mountain Lion is organized, we are a special district, which means that we are a government organization, but we are not under the county, and we're not under the city. We are our own special district. So if you look at a map of our district boundaries, it looks like a patchwork quilt. It doesn't follow the city boundaries, it doesn't follow the county boundaries, it doesn't even follow the growth boundaries. We were founded in 1976, and the original boundary looks more cohesive than it is today. As development happens, they petition into our district, and that means when you look at things, it doesn't look cohesive. And so we actually brought on somebody just a couple of years ago, and his sole goal is to make better maps, assess our data, and to help make a more cohesive district. But just because we're not under the city or the county doesn't mean we're not beholden to both agencies. So we are governed by a board of directors. There's seven directors on our board. The city appoints 3, the county appoints 3, and then they share that 7th appointment. They alternate. So we do work very closely with our county commissioners, our city council, the mayor, to make sure that what we're doing matches the goals that they have for this community, because we are a community bus service. We also do our own outreach. So every couple of years, we go out to the community and we update our strategic plan. So the last time we did this was in 2017, where we went to neighborhood councils, had public feedback for about a year, and said, basically, what do you want for the future of your bus service? Because for you is why we exist. And overwhelmingly, we heard from people they wanted more service, and particularly Sunday service. So right now, Mountain Line only operates Monday through Saturday. We don't operate on Sunday, and we only have truncated service on Saturday. So from 2018 through 2020, we put together a comprehensive plan, and the next iteration of that plan is to go to the voters. And so that's what we did in 2020 in the middle of a pandemic, and it wasn't a decision we took lightly. But our board of directors felt very strongly that we needed to hear from our district what they wanted from us. And so we asked for a mill levy increase, which some of you, if you live in our district, you probably saw it on your ballot, to provide more service. And it did pass. It passed by the largest margin. We were really surprised of any tax initiative in the last decade. And I do think that is very connected to the direct benefit that Mountain Line has. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about those expansions here in a minute. So it kind of gives you a big picture of how we're governed, who we're beholden to, and how we operate, which is off of a strategic plan based upon public comment. And we also have lots of plans on the side. So because we are beholden to the city and the county, that means we also work very closely with planners. There's a lot of development happening in Missoula. Example is the Mullen area, right? There's a lot of development happening out there. So just because it's not in our strategic plan doesn't mean we're not part of development. So, we work closely with the MPO. We're starting to draft plans for Route 15 in that area as it develops, making sure that when it's built conducive to providing public transportation. So when I arrived today, I had somebody ask me, is there a route on Reserve Street? And there's not a route on Reserve Street because when it was developed, it wasn't developed with multimodal transportation in mind. So, as you're driving down Reserve Street, there's really not places for pedestrian crosswalks. There's really not a place for, safe biking on Reserve Street. There's not great sidewalk infrastructure for, putting in bus stops. So we do have a route, routes on either side of Reserve Street near Target and on the other side behind Home Depot, but it's not safe to provide public transportation right now on Reserve Street. The same thing with Brook Street. And right now there's a big master plan looking at reimagining Brook Street entirely to make it more hospitable for multimodal transportation, because right now it's just very much car focused. And as our community grows, that's not going to be sustainable with traffic congestion. We already know that our valley is very good at trapping things here from the geography. So winter inversions, summer wildfire smoke, our air quality is precious. And so the more that we can do to ensure we're protecting that really fragile air quality, we want to do it. And whether that means encouraging more people to ride the bus, we're currently transitioning to an electric fleet, which I'll talk a little bit more about, but it also means as we're planning the future of our community to think about that long-term plan. So the strategic plan that we went out to the ballot box, that was put together through public comment, but we are also working on the Brook Street development with multiple agencies. And there's something called a shovel-ready project, which I'm sure you've all heard before, which basically means that when federal funding becomes available, you have to have the project ready to go and say, here's what we'll do, here's the agencies involved, here's how much it's going to cost, please give us the funding. So that's where we're at with the Brook Street development, is saying, hey, this is what we want to do. We want to provide bus service. This is what it will take. The city wants to put in bike lanes. We want to put in crosswalks. And then as soon as the funding becomes available, we'll submit it for approval. So there's a lot of projects like that on the outskirts of what we're doing day to day. And a lot of those projects can only happen through federal funding or grant funding. The same thing when we purchase buses. We can only do that through external grant funding. So our day-to-day operations are funded by property tax. So to pay our bus drivers to be on the road, to charge our buses and fuel our buses, that all comes from property tax. That's a model that I'm sure maybe you won't agree, but I think significantly a lot of people agree is not a sustainable model either, particularly as we grow and property values go up. When we put everything onto property tax, it becomes cumbersome, particularly if you're living on a fixed income or low income. And so that's something that our general manager takes very seriously, knowing that our direct funding to put bus service on the road comes from taxpayer property tax money. So we don't take that lightly either. And he's working with Bozeman and Billings, those are the other two larger transportation agencies in Montana, and then also tangentially Great Falls and Helena, which have much smaller transportation agencies, to look at a comprehensive study bill across the state for how do we have a better model of putting things on the street. So that's kind of a blanket of how we work on different plans and our own plan. And so now I'm going to dial a little bit more into what we do. And so at Mountain Lion, we have 3 key services. Our first service is our fixed route bus service. So that's, when you look at our map and you see the lines on the map, it's predictably going to go along the same route at the same times and stop at the same stops. That's our fixed route. And those are what we use our big buses for. We provide about 1.5 million rides annually during normal times. This is not normal ridership times for us, for anybody in the country. Right now, we're at about 55-60% of normal. I am really interested to see how those ridership numbers change with school starting, because students are a huge sector of who rides the bus, especially in Missoula. Some of MCPS schools don't have regular bus routes and rely on parents to drive their kids or Mountain Lion for them to ride. And university, we have a significant sector of university students ride our buses. And over the last year and a half, it's either been a hybrid model or completely digital. So we haven't had that ridership. So we're really anxious to see what that looks like in the next month. If the ridership numbers go up significantly or moderately, we won't know. So fixed route service, that's where the largest amount of service expansion will be seen in January of 2022 from the mill levy. So we'll be offering Sunday service. We're also going to be running earlier in the morning and later at night. So we have a couple of high frequency routes that come every 15 minutes during the weekday. And those will be running till 11 o'clock at night. So if people don't work a traditional 9 to 5, they want to go downtown and have some dinner and see a show and still have a ride home, this is going to open up a lot more opportunity for it to be convenient to take the bus. Because we have these sometimes, what is the word I'm looking for? Goals that maybe butt heads, right? And so we have the goal of ridership. We want it to be convenient. We want people to ride. We want to have a high enough frequency that it's more convenient to take the bus than not to take the bus. And so we want to invest funding in putting more buses on, the line and more people driving, so it's higher frequency. But then we also have this goal of access, and that means getting buses to areas farther out. Like, for example, the Route 12 goes up into the South Hills. It takes a long time to drive a bus all the way out by Miller Creek, up into the South Hills, down by Patty Canyon and back. But we want to provide access to that area. And so we're always trying to marry these two goals of providing access with convenience. And that ultimately ends up being our limiting factor all the time, is we want to do more and more and more, and we have funding to do this. And so right now we've decided that putting more service on our existing routes is going to make it more convenient and serve more people. And then looking at the development for Brook Street and Mullen area as our tangential, offering more service in the future. So our fixed route bus service, all of our buses are 100% ADA accessible. We are transitioning to a zero tailpipe emissions fleet. And we say zero tailpipe emissions because we recognize right now we have electric buses and you have to charge those. And Northwestern's energy mix is about 60% carbon free, but there's still 40% coming from fossil fuel sources at the moment. That's always changing, but that's just kind of where it is right now. And it takes a lot of energy to charge an electric bus. So in the immediate region, it's more beneficial to drive an electric bus because we're reducing the amount of particulate matter and CO2 emissions going into the air. The bigger picture, we still have emissions associated with charging those buses. We might not just be experiencing them right here locally, but there are repercussions. And so we say zero tailpipe emissions, knowing that the ultimate goal is a fully zero emissions fleet. Right now, that means it's electric. We have 6 electric buses on the road, which we got all through federal grants that we've competed for. We have 6 more arriving this year. So by the end of this year, we'll be 40% electric on our fixed route fleet. And the goal is to have a completely zero tailpipe emissions fleet by 2035. Where that's going to take a little bit longer is not our fixed route buses, but our paratransit vehicles. And that brings me to our second service. So we offer paratransit service, and this is a curb-to-curb service for people who have a physical barrier or mental barrier, some sort of tangible barrier to using fixed route service. And all we need is an application that a medical provider signs off on. And that could be, even a speech therapist, a physical therapist. We have a whole smattering of people that are qualified to say, hey, this person needs a little bit more service. And then what that means is you would call and reserve your ride the day ahead. We would come to your curb and take you to the curb of your destination. And where we provide paratransit service is within a 3/4 mile radius of any fixed route. So that's almost the entirety of the valley as far as where we operate fixed route. We have that available on our website. That covers areas like the Miller Creek area where we can't get buses into Lower Miller Creek. It wasn't developed to have a big 30-foot bus drive down there, but we can't get our smaller paratransit vehicles. So if there's someone who truly needs service, who cannot access a fixed route bus and has a medical barrier, we can at least get those vehicles there. We wish we could get buses there, and right now we can't. And so we're looking at, do we get smaller buses? What do we do for that? It's on our radar that we don't have good service in that area. And then our third service we provide, so we have fixed route, paratransit, and then we have something that we call shuttle van. And this is for our riders 60 years of age and older who maybe have a barrier to riding fixed route, but they don't qualify for paratransit. Maybe it's something that in the wintertime, it's kind of icy, you don't feel comfortable walking, 2 blocks to the bus stop. You have your groceries with you, you don't want to deal with that. And so that's a first come, first served service that we offer, but you just call the night before, reserve your ride, and you can be picked up. So it's just a small application just to verify who you are and where you live so we can put you in our system. But I would definitely recommend, if you're interested in not dealing with traffic and parking, to look into that service, because all of our services are zero fare, which means that when you reserve your ride or hop on the bus, you don't have to worry about paying the fare. And we went zero fare in 2015. And how we did it, I have not seen anybody else in the United States or the world do it the way that Missoula did it. And so this started with a conversation with actually Mayor Engen in 2013. He was running for re-election. And he really wanted to make public transit more accessible for the community. And his idea was to make it zero fare. And at the time, this was a novel idea. There were not hardly any zero fare systems in the United States. And so the general manager at the time, Mayor Engen, went out, did some polling, and found people did not want it. They did not want their taxpayer money to pay for zero fare. And they said, okay, how else can we do this? Because we really want to do this. And so what they decided to do was to approach community partners like the university, who was already paying for reduced fare for students or free fare for students, like St. Providence Hospital, like Community Medical Center, where they were paying to provide their employees with bus passes to help deal with parking demand and their sustainability goals. They approached nonprofits like Homeward, whose mission is to make a more equitable, affordable community, particularly in housing, but who recognizes that transportation, upkeeping a car, which I was just at a presentation yesterday, which they said right now, a single car just to maintain it is about $9,000 a year. And that's prohibitive for people on a low income to have 2 cars. If they could even reduce it to 1 car, that's making it more affordable, right? So organizations like Homeward, private businesses like real estate organizations that recognize a robust public transit system is better for business and homeowners. So we have a whole variety of partners that we approached and said, would you be willing to put a little bit more in to make it zero fare for everybody? And they said yes. And so we were able to sign up partners for what we originally slated as a 3-year demonstration project, and that started in 2015. And we adjusted for some margins, thinking, okay, maybe more people will ride, maybe 30% more. And our ridership increased about 70%. So it was a significant increase. And we did a poll, and about 50% of those riding said they ride now because it's zero fare, or more frequently because it's zero fare. And so we were able to renew the partnerships for another 3 years and grow our partnerships because it was such a popular program. And this is now our 7th year of zero fare. And so, prior to the election in 2020, we went back out and did some polling and said, how do you feel about us being on the ballot? What do you think about Mountain Line services? And zero fare was actually the highest point of community pride. It's really become an identity of Mountain Line, is to have zero fare service, not only for fixed route, but for paratransit and shuttle van. And so we asked, as part of that ask last year, hey community, are you willing to come on board to be a partner? Because when we partnered with the original zero fare partners, we didn't anticipate such a huge increase in ridership, and so we didn't actually collect enough funding. So we've brought the community on as a partner to make that a more sustainable model, so that we're not becoming a fundraising model in my position to continue zero fare. So we still have partnerships, but now we have community support to make sure that that continues in perpetuity. Some of our partners were hit pretty hard by the pandemic, like Destination Missoula is a tourism-based organization, the Downtown Association. You know, they've approached us saying, we believe in this, but it's gonna be hard for us this year. And you know, I think just with logic, if you're an organization's head and you're looking at, do I cut positions or do I cut my zero fare contribution, you're probably gonna cut your zero fare contribution. And so we knew that as well going into the election and wanted to make sure that if the community wanted to continue, that there was buy-in, and there was. So those are our key services. We're a zero fare operation. And then let's see, what else was I gonna talk about? We're expanding service, and so we're gonna be running 7 days and 7 nights, and that will also apply to paratransit and shuttle van. So we'll have shuttle van service on Sundays if people want to take it to church, to the grocery store, or to outings with their family. It's really gonna open up a lot more opportunity. And I mentioned that zero fare, while it was not something that we got financial contributions to cover what we would be collecting if we were collecting fares, it's actually been overwhelmingly beneficial financially for Missoula because it makes us more competitive for federal funding. Because we're able to show demonstrated community support and buy-in to public transportation. And so because of things like zero fare and our community partnerships, we've been successful, and just the last year, we got $4.6 million in federal funding to purchase new electric buses and charging infrastructure. We got a significant amount of funding in 2018 to do a total overhaul of our system. So if you're someone who drives along our routes 1 and 2, which is by the University District and over by the Good Food Store, kind of does a big loop, you'll start to see that we have new bus stop shelters, we have new benches, we have new signs going in. And so all of that was made possible by what's called a build grant. And the goal of that project, it's called our Bus Stop Master Plan. When we were founded in the 70s, we were a flag system. So people could just flag down the bus and we would stop and pick them up. But as the community grows, that's not safe, right? To have like a bus stopping at all manners of places and people running into the traffic, it's not a safe thing. So we did away with that a couple of years ago. But one of the repercussions of having a system like that is there's all of these like secret stops because people would flag them down a lot and there was never a sign there, but operators just still stop there. And so we realized there's all of these like secretly unmarked stops that we stop at and that we've never taken out a stop in our history of being founded. So we might have added stops in, but looking at how the community has grown and how traffic patterns are changed, there might be some stops and locations that are no longer safe. And we just need to move them a block or two because there's too much traffic now, or there's not good pedestrian infrastructure, or it's on the near side of in a crosswalk where the bus blocks the visibility, so we just need to move it to the far side so they can go behind the bus. Little things like that. So it's a whole overhaul of our system, and it's also adding 68 more accessible boarding and alighting areas. So all of our vehicles are ADA accessible. Not all of our stops are. And I'm sure you've seen, just even out here on South, if you're gonna go out on South Avenue, look to your right by Community Medical Center, and you're gonna see a concrete bench in the dirt. If someone uses a mobility device or has issues with stairs, they cannot safely use that stop. We don't have enough funding to redo every stop in our system as far as accessibility, but we do have enough to make all of our routes 1 and 2, which are high frequency in-town routes, accessible. The sad thing is that we were gonna be done in July and our contractor went bankrupt overnight and locked up. So we're back out for an RFP process, which is one of those things when you work for a government organization. That's just sometimes that happens. That's what we're going through. But we are going to continue with phase 2 of that project, which is re-signing every single stop within our district. So some of those secret stops are actually going to have signs now. And we've transitioned to a new type of sign pole. So rather than just the traditional sign pole, we've transitioned to an octagonal shape that is different than any other signpost in Missoula, so you can distinguish it by feel. And the goal of that, again, is to make it more accessible for someone who might have a visual impairment. We have a rider who, her dog knows where the stops are, but now she can tell by feeling that this is indeed a bus stop. So those are some of the things we're working on right now, and I think I'm gonna open it up to Q&A because it's 9 o'clock, and I'd like to know what you'd like to know.
Shanti, the new infrastructure bill that the U.S. Congress passed, is that something you apply for, or will there be funds that will come towards Missoula to make the improvements you're talking about?
That's a good question. So I'm going to answer it in a tangential way. So Montana is really unique in that we have two senators who both sit on the Banking and Finance Committee, which makes the decisions for public transportation in the United States. It's a little bit ironic that we have such a high sway over public transportation in the entire country when Montana itself, Mountain Line, is the biggest system in Montana. But the flip side means that we have a lot of federal support from both senators, and that's also unique, that both Senator Daines and Senator Tester support public transportation. And so I think that bodes well for us moving forward. It's not clear yet exactly how that's going to impact us. I think a lot of what we're hearing from our senators is some of those shovel-ready projects. And the biggest need we have right now for Mountain Line is that we are out of space. We've been in the same location since the 80s, and we physically do not have more space to add more buses. So the Brook Street project, let's say best case scenario, it gets funded. Well, that project has Mountain Line adding new routes and 15-minute service, which would be incredible. We don't have room to buy more buses to offer that service. And so our commissioners, our senators, our city council, they know that we're at our limit. We can't add new routes because we can't have new buses, so we need more space. Whether that means we have a satellite location where we can store more buses and have more operators. We're growing from 70 people to 100 people this year just to put the new service on the road. And that's not adding new buses. We're doing all of it with our existing buses, but we need more people. We're also working to find new space to purchase. And we need about 8 acres if we're gonna be in the same spot, if we're not gonna have a satellite office. And that's really only available with certain plots of land that are slated for something else, or out by the Y. And if we were to be out by the Y, the amount of what we call deadhead time, which means driving just to get downtown before we even start offering service, becomes financially prohibitive. And so really, we're trying to work very closely on our need, which is space for that funding. But there are certain, they're talking about, do we bring back earmarks? They did away with earmarks for quite a while. So the big answer is that we have a direct line of communication with our senators, and are hopeful that it will become in our best interest that we can use it for what we need it to be, but we don't know yet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The shuttle service, does it have the same parameter as the para service?
Oh, yeah.
3/4 mile radius from existing?
It does, and that's a great question. Yes, so we offer shuttle van service the same area as paratransit, and I do have a map where I can show you, if anybody's interested. I did bring a handout today of our services, those 3 services, and how to apply for them. And I have a card, so if it's something that you're interested in and want an application or want to see if your property is within our service area, we can figure that out. And something that we can do, so I live on Mullen Road, for example, and I don't live within 3/4 miles of a Mountain Line bus stop. Let's say I needed paratransit. Well, I'm only a half mile away from where they would pick me up. And so if I can just get that half mile, for the same thing for shuttle van, I can leave my car and be somewhere else. Which, I get calls all the time from people, and I don't love that answer. That's my answer right now.
A couple things. How is that 3/4 mile measured? Is it as the crow flies, or is it road?
As the crow flies. So it opens up a lot more service area. Yeah.
Second is, Missoula is committed to a green future, and they're trying to work with Northwestern Energy to develop a green tariff along with a couple of other cities. And the big element of that green tariff is that, as you said, Northwestern Energy provides a lot of their electricity already from renewable sources, basically hydro. But the green tariff is looking to any new load or anybody that chooses to participate in the tariff. The new green energy has to come from an additional source, not an existing source. Okay, so are you working with the city on supporting this green tariff effort with Northwestern Energy and the Public Service Commission?
To the best of my knowledge, we're not working on that directly. but we are working with Northwestern Energy to make it more affordable for our electric charging. So our zero tailpipe emissions goal by 2035, that's in support of the city and the county both have different goals, right, for when they want to be completely green, if we want to use the word green. And so part of our board of directors passing that was to show solidarity and support and to put the direction on staff to make that happen. The Green Tariff Program is not something I'm aware that we're working on. Our projects and planning manager may be working on that, and I don't know. But we've been working with Northwestern Energy for about 2 years on a rate case. So right now, to operate our electric buses, it actually costs us a little bit more per mile than to operate our diesel buses. And that is just because we have demand rate charges. Because when we plug in our electric bus, it pulls so much energy, they put another charge on top of the additional kilowatt hours that we're paying for. And it's prohibitive for a lot of agencies to go electric, this demand rate charge. So we've been working with them to get that reduced, to change our charging hours so that it works for them and they can drop the charge so it works for us. So we're working on a different project with them, but it's all in the same vein of creating a more sustainable future. Yeah. Did you have a second question? No? Okay. While I'm thinking about it, keep thinking about your questions, but I thought of a couple of things I wanted to say. The first thing is that just, if you feel like riding and you haven't ridden before and you're intimidated by how to plan the schedule or what do you need to do to get on and off the bus and how do you signal, when you're ready to get off. We actually have a video series with my beautiful face that we just put out. I filmed most of this during the pandemic by myself. I set up my little camera, but I have a really detailed video about how to read our schedule and plan a trip, just to give the overview of what does our map mean, why is there only 3 colors? Because it's confusing. I had to learn it at first. So I've got that. We have a YouTube channel if you have access to the internet. I also do rider training all the time. So if you want to go out with me or plan a trip with me, I meet people at the transfer center all the time to take a trip together. I also have a second video of just how to ride. How do you know which side of the street to wait on? How do you know you're at the right bus stop? How do you signal when you're ready to get off? If you use a mobility device, where do you sit? So I've got a whole video about that too on YouTube. It looks much prettier because someone else held the camera. And then we also do trip planning. So you can call anytime, Monday through Friday, and we will help you plan your trip. So you can just call our line. We have a front desk person. That is what he does, is he helps people access the bus. We also have a trip planner on our website. So if you go to mountainline.com, we use Google Trip Planner defaulted to transit. So you can plug in where you need to go, your starting location, your time, and it will tell you exactly how to use the public transportation system.
Are those websites listed on your pamphlet here?
Yes, I'm going to give everyone who wants one a map and then a handout of our service overview. And then I have a card too, because I know sometimes people would rather go through a person than a website. And that's what I do. Part of my job is to help people fall in love with the bus. Because it can be intimidating the first couple times you use it. But after that, I think it really opens up a lot of empowerment to be wow, I don't even have to deal with traffic or parking downtown. I can just hop on the bus. Anytime I go downtown Missoula now, which is where all of our buses go into and leave from, except for Route 8, which goes to the University and Community Medical and back. It's just so much easier to just park and hop on the bus. You can park at Southgate Mall, and during the weekday, every 15 minutes, a bus is coming by that will take you downtown. So, even the park and ride model, if you don't want to try to figure out multiple steps, can save you a lot of time and stress. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is UDASH a part of Mountain Line, a partnership with the university? How do those two systems work together?
So UDASH is independent. It's funded by students. It's under the ASUM, the Associated Students of the University of Montana, but we work really closely with them because we understand that it benefits both of us to have complementary systems. So they're also zero fare. We also have the same sort of messaging when it comes to the mask mandate. So for example, we are beholden to federal security and federal mask mandates. We're operated under the TSA, just like the airport. And so we work really closely. I meet with UDASH every month to be hey, how are you talking to people about this? What problems are you seeing? Can I help you message more? So we try to be really collaborative. So bring your mask if you're riding. It's still under TSA. Just like if you were going to get on an airplane. They just extended that through January 18th. We have masks for you if you forget yours, but we do try to be sustainable. We've given out over 6,000 masks since April. So if you can bring your own, it really saves a lot of resources.
Going to energy,
Mm-hmm.
and your surcharge for electricity and so forth, do you have any plans to install solar at your facilities to charge your buses?
So we get asked that question a lot about solar, and looking at how many solar panels we would need to install to even offset some of our electrical charging is beyond what we can feel good about investing public money in. Because it's so much that we would need, because electric buses take a lot of energy. And so it's in our better interest to work with Northwestern Energy on improving their mix in general than to install solar on ours right now. But it's changing really fast. So we just got new electric buses in a couple months ago that are going on the street this week. And just to see the differences in the electric buses of this year versus our electric buses from 2019 and what they can do and how powerful they are and how efficient they are, I mean, it makes us really hopeful for the next round of buses that we're going to keep getting it being more efficient every time. Do you have any other questions? I also have stickers. If you want some stickers.
Well, okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.